Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. In this episode, we will be taking a look at the Camillus Cuda. Stay tuned. So I was walking around Walmart one day. Where have you heard this before? Just about every week I at least walk around Walmart. But I look for new cool things to get that are within the subjects of this channel. Anyway, I came across some new knives. They finally redid their knife case and they have some new knives by a company called Camillus. And that's why we have a review here of the Camillus Cuda. But this company's been around a long time. It's not new. Or maybe it is new. Let's go over this a little bit. I have some notes here I want to sort of relay to you so we could get the whole story. So around, let's see. Actually, I should have scrolled to the top. Let's talk about Camillus. Camillus has its roots back in 1876, which they write on the box, write on their website, and all that good stuff. But it wasn't known as Camillus back in 1876. It has its roots in 1876. It was known as the Adolf Castor and Brothers Company, and it was on Canal Street, New York, and basically they imported German knives. And then because of tariffs and everything, and they made it really expensive to import, they started making their own knives, and they were really producing a whole bunch of knives starting around 1910. So fast forward a lot of years, almost a decade. In 2007, this company went out of business, but they gained a lot of popularity. They made Boy Scout knives is probably one thing that they're known a lot for. But they're actually known for this Cuda back then too. Anyway, in 2009, a company by the name of Acme United Corporation bought the name, and that's what Camillus is today. It's actually owned by Acme United Corp. So they're trying to resurrect the name or resurrect the knife company, and they're banking on this name, which, the name recognition of a company that used to have this name, and they're also banking on something else they seem to tattoo all over the box and all over their website and everything, and that is a carbon nitrate titanium coating that they bond to the surface of the metal 10 times harder than steel. So between these two things, they're really trying to sell their product. So is it really living up to the old company? And is this coating all that? Well, we'll find out. So let's start taking a look. So let's just take a quick look at the packaging. This also comes in the clamshell packaging, but Walmart, or at least my Walmart, went back to the box types, which I'm very thankful for. I'm not a very big fan of the clamshell, which you risk life and limb to open. Now, they do say that they have a lifetime warranty, and from what I read in some of the comments, they actually do a very good job of standing up to that warranty that they state here. Also, made in China. Made in China. They also state that it's Japanese AS8 steel. So just a couple of quick notes here, and they also have a whole blurb about how great they are because of the name Camillus goes back to 1876. But I just told you about that whole story. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this open. And I'm actually going to leave the box here because I noticed that in some of my videos the focus goes in and out, in and out, in and out because I don't have any texture back here. So hopefully the box will keep things in focus. So here is the knife. And the first thing that stands out about this knife is this thumb plate. Let me go ahead and bring that in and you can see what that looks like. This is the opening mechanism for this knife. There is no thumb stud. There is no nail nick. No flipper. It's very unique. And supposedly the company that the real Camillus made these, and they were very popular because they were sort of put out there as a means of opening a knife fast before you had assisted opening knives. So this is sort of brings back memories to a lot of knife collectors from years ago. So let's go ahead and try to open this and get a first impression. And you can see that you can't just slowly do it. You really got to start fast. If you go slow, it's very hard, and it takes a little bit of practice to get used to this. What you really need to do is like get your finger here, like here's the clip here, get your finger right behind this clip here, and then put your finger on a thumb stud, and you got to squeeze while pushing, and you got to do it quick, and you could sort of get used to it. So it's the reason why it's so hard is because here's the pivot screw right there, and you can see how close this mechanism is to bring that knife around, and you use the same motion almost as you were using a thumb stud, but you better get a lot of momentum started quick because you're so close to the pivot screw. It's like trying to start your car in fifth gear. It's a lot easier if the thumb studs were out here and you don't have that motion to be able to bring it around. So you really gotta, it's very difficult, especially when it's new out of the box, to get that out. I noticed that you might be tempted to put your finger behind this thumb plate right here and try to push. It's better to just put your finger on top of that thumb plate and go, I notice. But there's an easier way to open this knife. And that's because the detent in this is very weak. So you can just flip it out with momentum. Just sort of, you could almost just flip it out with a flick of the wrist, just like that, because the detent is so bad. Look at that. You could even do a reverse. So you don't even need that thumb plate, but that could be a bad thing because the detent being so weak, there's a possibility, I'm not saying it does, but there's a possibility this could open up in your pocket or something like that. This will vary from knife to knife, so you need to be aware of that. Be careful about that. So while I have this open, let's take a look at the locking mechanism, which is a liner lock. Look how late that lockup is. Now I've maybe opened up this knife, let's see, maybe 50 times, playing with it, getting used to it, and you can see how far over it is. It sort of makes you want to think, well, how much longer is that liner lock going to last before it wears beyond to the point where the knife can't self-adjust anymore. When I first got it, it was basically around halfway, so it's worked its way over just a little bit beyond halfway. I prefer when you get a liner lock or a frame lock for it to be right there, where it's behind the blade, but it has the back of the blade, the entire back of the blade to wear as it gets older. So it's like getting a knife that's half used, in my opinion. Now maybe this won't wear anymore, I don't know, but I don't like it. I don't like that. Also, you notice how thin that liner is compared to how thick everything else is. It's very thin. And you can see this does have liners in between G10 scales. You got a clip. The clip is sufficiently tight. There's, it's plain. There's nothing to write home about. You cannot mount this clip anywhere else. And, you got this mechanism here, so that's an impossibility. But they could have put it here for tip up, but it's only for right-handed tip down carry. You have a lanyard hole here. You could definitely get 550 cord or paracord, which is one of the same, through there if you wish. And let's move on to the blade. Here's the blade with that carbon nitride titanium bonded to the metal coating, which they say will not flake off. I don't use this, so I don't know, but I've read at least one review where someone said it did, but for the most part it seems, based on reviews out there, that it does stand up fairly good. The blade stock is extremely thick. Look how thick that is. It's actually thicker than the Recon ones. Very thick. The blade length is 3.75 inches. The overall length of this knife when open is 9 inches. The weight is 4.8 ounces, which is, you know, it feels a little heavy, but it actually isn't. I mean, how heavy is 4.8 ounces? The steel, if I think I forgot to mention it, is AS8 Japanese steel. It's made in China, but it has Japanese blade stock here. It is a hollow grind. It is what appears to be a drop point, but it does have a swedge taken out here, probably to lighten it up. You can see how they, took some of that out so it doesn't maintain that thickness that you see here. That probably helps with penetration and lightening up the blade a little bit because it is a little bit on the heavy side. Now you also get some jimping up here. You can see you have some jimping on the liner in here, which is barely functional, and you have some jimping on a thumb ramp right here. You have a thumb ramp, you have some jimping right there. It is adequately functional. It's not really grippy, but it does a fair job. So between this here to get your finger and the thumb stud there, you should be able to keep a good purchase on this knife. There's not much as far as the handle is concerned to really hold your knife or your hand in place, so you need to rely on this and the thumb ramp with the jimping. You have no finger grooves or anything like that here on the handle. Reverse grip is surprisingly pretty good. Again, it's because you have this curve right here, so your thumb could just sort of rest over there. So for large hands like mine, reverse grip is pretty comfortable. And my fine cutting grip that I use, this is how I usually hold it. My finger can rest here on the top of the clip, and that feels pretty comfortable for doing some fine cutting. So, did I mention G10 scales? Yes, I did. I went over the liner lock, lanyard hole, the plain clip that's mounted. You can't move it. It is made in China. Because it's made in China, you could get this for the unbelievable low price of $30 at Walmart. But you might see it other places on the internet for as high as $40 to $50. I did want to show you one other thing that sort of drives me crazy about this knife. Here's my American Lawman by Cold Steel. Yes, it looks different. I did take the coating off the blade. I went ahead and stonewashed it, just for those of you who have not seen it. One of the things I did recently, by the way, is I took the black coating off the thumb stud too. I didn't like the black thumb stud on the blade. So, anyway, what I wanted to show you is the thickness of these blades. They're almost about the same. Believe it or not, the Cuda is actually just a little bit thicker than the Lawman. But if you look at the scales here on this guy, which is just pure G10 with no liners, they're nice, beefy. Here you have these thin liners with very thin G10, and then you have this big giant gap. And then that thin liner. It makes the whole thing look kind of cheesy, if you ask me, like a cheap Chinese knife for $10. Look how much better, let's say, this Cold Steel look, or most knives, where you don't have any wasted space there with the blade and the scales, and you have all this wide open gap, even between the blade and the liners, big old gaps. It just looks cheesy to me. Also, I forgot to mention this is a open pillow design, so dirt's easy to get in and out. So as you can tell, this is really ending up a pretty negative review. Now there is another positive, or there are some pros to this. You get G10, you get AS8. You also get a knife that comes probably one of the sharpest knife that I've ever gotten from a company. This thing is very, very sharp. As a matter of fact, I can shave with it. Look at that. It just took my hair off. I have never, ever, now I'm going to look funny, I've never had a knife that came from the factory that razor sharp. Absolutely unbelievable how sharp this thing is. Unfortunately, from what I read on the reviews, it doesn't hold the edge very well. So it's an AS8, but it might be a poorly treated AS8. So because it's a little softer, you could go ahead and get a razor edge on it, but it's not going to hold it for extremely long. But I'll say it is a good steal, especially for a knife that's $30. That's a very good deal. So those are the pros. The cons, again, just one more time, liner lock is thin. It's wearing quickly. The thumb plate's hard to use, but you have that weak detent, so you could just flip it out with a flick of the wrist. So it comes out fast. Even you don't have to use that. And it's overly thick. Where, you know, if it was engineered a little better, they could have got it thinner. Now, because it's so thick, there's another issue, which I don't have here on my notes, but I just remembered. When it's in your pocket, again, it's tipped down, and it's in your pocket, it's pretty thick, and you're trying to get your hand down there, and the first thing your hand hits is that thumb plate as you're trying to get your hand down in there. So you have that, and also you have that rattle, and that rattle doesn't go away when it's open. So that thing just sort of rattles in there. So I'm just not a fan of this knife, but it's not going to get. I'm not going to give it a terrible rating because of the materials that are used here, and they also, you know, give you a good warranty. So I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10 because it's not an expensive knife. You know, you can't expect too much for a cheap knife. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It you know, I'll use it for a beater if I need a larger EDC type of knife to beat around. This will be a candidate, but it's just not a good. It's not a good EDC because the thumb plate and the thickness of this thing and weight, you could do a lot better for the price. I got hair all over my desk, and now I have one shaved hand and one unshaved hand. That's pretty bad. So anyway, I want to do some things here at the end of the video. For one thing, I want to do a thank you of the day, and it goes out to Mr. Strongbow 1800. He had wrote to me in personal message PM. You might want to consider isolating your Blue Yeti, which is this microphone, from your desk. Every time you touch your desk or move something on your desk, it gets transmitted straight to the mic, which is true. Now, I went ahead and put my mic, it usually is here, I moved it here to a little table. So, see, when I hit it here, you can hear that noise. When I hit my table now, no noise. I took your advice, and I actually mentioned this when I did the review on the Blue Yeti, and yet I ignored my recommendation. Anyway, I want to do a shout out of the day. You know, sometimes I'm going to do a channel that doesn't have a lot of viewers. Sometimes I'll do a channel that has a lot. And this particular channel is one of my, top 10 favorites. It's really up there where when, a video comes out, I'm watching it no matter what. And that is the 80s Podcast channel. He just has a personality that I just like watching that channel. It's completely entertaining. A lot of good information, a lot of good common sense survival tactics, what to buy, what not to buy, at Costco or big box store. You should get this, not this. Hiding things in plates I use everyday ordinary things. He makes killer beef jerky. You gotta just trust me. If you subscribe to me, you should subscribe to the 80s Podcast channel. And I also want to do a question of the day. I've been getting asked this a lot lately for some reason from the younger crowd. So I'm going to answer it, and it's not going to be the answer you like. But the question I keep on seeing in the beginning is, what is your religion? And I've said it before, but I'll say it one more time. I do not discuss religion, and I also do not discuss politics on this channel. I also don't cuss on this channel. I did cuss in one video out of the over 300 or whatever videos that I have out there. And that's because I cut myself doing a review, and I left it in the video. I wonder if any of you remember which knife I was reviewing that I cut myself. Anyway, I don't cuss here either. Now, maybe one day I'll start a new channel, and I'll let loose a little bit and maybe get a little political, because I can, and I can cuss. You don't go through 22 years in the Navy and also live in the Bronx and not cuss. If you do, I don't know, you must be a saint, and I am no saint. So thank you very much for joining me here at the Gear Obsession channel. I really appreciate every friend, viewer, subscriber, and you. And I hope you have a great evening, and I will see you Friday.